Welcome to Childcare Conversations with Kate and Carrie.
Welcome back to Childcare Conversations with Kate and Carrie, and we are so excited because today we are meeting a new friend who we have gotten to know even better today. We are in Rhode Island, and so even though the conference has been a little bit past, we're so excited to introduce you to Jamalynn Lewis. And Jamie's from New Orleans, and
which is where my daughter is right now.
Really?
Yes, she's at Jazz Fest.
I've never been to Jazz Fest.
Well, my dad's gone and now my daughter's gone. So at some point I may have to go, but
Well, you know what? When you come down, call me
okay.
and we can experience it together.
absolutely, that sounds like an
Yeah.
awesome idea. So Jamie, everybody has their story of how they got to early child care. I know you've mentioned that you have two programs,
Mhm.
but tell us, how did you find yourself in early child care, and we'll go from there.
Girl, it's a story. But to kind of narrow everything down, I was the only child. My mom told me at the age of 9 that she was pregnant. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't want to share. Why do I have to share? Right. So since then, my little brother was born. We're 9 years apart. Didn't really have good liking to him. So I stayed punished, and I was like, this is your brother. Y'all are stuck for life. You need to pray for patience. And I prayed myself into childcare for 17 years now. So prayer works. May not work for what you want when you want it, how you want it, but it definitely works. And I've been doing childcare for 17 years.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you had one program. What sparked the need for a second location?
Oh, girl. So when I opened my center in 2019, it was like I was told that I wasn't going to ever be able to do it. And I did it. And then the pandemic happened. And they were like, so what are you going to do now? And I'm like, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I did not close my doors when everyone did. I stayed open until I was almost forced to close. So once I was forced to close, I had a 2.5-year wait list. And when I reopened, I'm like, I can't not service these children. So I was on a hunt looking for another location. I'm like, okay, I'll build my one location that I want, my one big location. And just in New Orleans, there's no buildings, no like you can't really build anything. So one lady reached out to me a few times and she was like, I'm selling my center. Are you interested? Do you want it? I'm like, no, I don't want it. And she reached out to me 3 times. And I'm like, you know what, God, 3 times, let's go for it. So I purchased my second location. And we've been going 3 years with that second location. And it's been amazing. The childcare industry has not been the same.
No, it's totally, there's a lot of change in the last 5 years.
Yes, it's a lot of change. It's hard. It's harder now with 2 locations and with the changes versus when I had my first location and we were booming and we had wait lists and it was just like, we want to be here. This is the new place. This is where we need to be. And now our state has no funding. So parents are staying home. They're not working. And it's actually cheaper to keep the kids home than to bring them to childcare. But that's when they're lacking the social emotional part.
Mhm.
They're lacking the cognitive part because they're not around other age children. So that's where mental health comes in.
Yep.
Right? Because the parents are not educated the way that the childcare professionals are to give that education. Now, I mean, the parents are the children's first teacher,
Right.
right? But you have some parents that don't even know what to do to start teaching or to start educating. So, I'm trying to branch out now and be an advocate, a louder advocate, not just in my state, but throughout the states in the nation, so that we can get that funding back to Louisiana, and not just Louisiana, because I know there's other states that's struggling as well. But for my state, I'm trying very hard. So be that advocate so that we can continue advocating for children and to get that funding back.
Okay, so I have a question, and I'm sure I think I would know the answer, but I'm not really. So with the struggle that you're seeing in your community with the parents not really knowing what to do you guys offer community parenting classes? Are you involved in the community at that
So-
level, or is that really not something that?
It would be amazing if we actually came together as a community to do that, right? And have those parents show up. Showing up is the most important part. We can have free giveaways. We can say, come get these resources, and we're doing it from this time to this time, but the parents just don't show up. And that's just like when we're hiring for interviews. We have people we call, we schedule interviews, they schedule, I'm coming, and then the interview date and time comes, and there is no call, no show. So, showing up is big.
Yeah, and it is so much easier to not leave your house than it is to go and get information than to go and apply for a job or to show up for the interview for the job. Because at home, you got YouTube, you got streaming services.
Yep.
You can be like, oh, I'll learn about how to take care of my kids. I'll watch some Sesame Street, or
And
I'll let
Sesame Street is
them
not educational.
anymore.
Right.
Yeah, it's not this.
It's not the same.
It's not the Sesame Street that it was. And they're like, well, this was fine for me
20
because
something years ago.
and they have that thought that, well, when I was a kid, this is how I learned my ABCs and 1, 2, 3s.
Yeah.
So obviously that's going to be the same because TV hasn't changed at all in the last 15 years.
So TV has not changed, but the things that's on TV, the programming has changed. And now there's Gracie's Corner,
Mhm.
absolutely love her. Miss Rachel, love her. But then we're doing a lot of screen time.
Mhm.
And that is what the parents are doing. Here,
Yep.
take this tablet, take this phone, go sit over there and learn. And that's not how it works. We have
Absolutely.
to get on their level. We have to start from the bare, A to Z before we can just throw anything. And then, that's where the behavior issues come in because now they're bored.
But yeah, and or they figure out how to entertain themselves.
Yeah.
Well, and there's also the lack of frustration tolerance.
Mhm.
And I think that's true for adults and for kids. And, part of the reason that children learn to walk is because they are so frustrated by not being able to get around.
Quick enough,
And
yeah.
so they get frustrated and they overcome that frustration and learn the next thing. But once they master basic speech and basic walking, people are like, cool, this kid doesn't ever need to be frustrated again.
But the
And-
question is, have they mastered the basic speech? Because we have
True.
children that's delayed in speech
Yeah,
because they're
absolutely.
being at home or being thrown a
Well, they
device.
don't have to talk. They especially, and I was also an only child, so right, so I was always an only child.
Well, they're fine.
Right, but so then there's that component of, well, I don't really need to use complete sentences because you know exactly what I'm thinking.
You know what? You know what I'm thinking, but someone else does
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. So, or even kids in large families, right? The oldest ones know what the youngest ones say, so they say it for them, right?
Mhm.
So we see that delay in speech patterns, so,
Mhm.
But I think there is such a change, again, that cultural change that has happened over the last few years of people not wanting to allow a child to be frustrated, to allow a child to be
Is
bored.
that the soft parenting aspect?
yeah.
I don't know where it comes from, but it doesn't matter really what people's background is. There's just like not the tolerance for that kid to just be frustrated with
Mhm.
something. They'll either do it for them,
Yep, because it's
Or-
quicker.
yeah, or because it's quicker, or they'll just tell them, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you don't need to put on your clothes. I will get your clothes on when it's time for us to leave the house.
Yeah.
And so you got 4-year-olds who don't know how to pull on their own britches.
Or I know how to tie shoes.
Yeah, because we can't have that frustration
Mhm.
tolerance. We have to be able to, what do they call it? It's not stick to itiveness, grit. They say the number one indicator of success in life is whether you have grit. And grit is that ability to keep going when things get hard. And if you're not giving kids the time to be frustrated with how to tie their shoes or how to pull their pants over their rear end, how do you expect them to be successful in life?
Okay, I just have to go down this grit rabbit hole because when we first were talking, resilience was a big part of Jamie's story.
Mhm.
And I didn't hear a lot of that. So why don't you share a little bit about your resilience, your grit, what part of that statement might resonate? And what could a new director or even somebody who's been a director for a while learn from your story?
So don't give up. Keep fighting because we have adults that do not have grit. So if the adult doesn't have grit, how can you expect someone else to have grit? Right? So even in my centers, I have been dealing with a lot on the back end, personal issues, a divorce and separation and business and my children. So if you don't have grit, what do you have? Right? It's many days where I'm like, Jesus, I can't do it. I don't want to get out of the bed. But then I have two little people that's like, Mommy, we're ready to go to school. So then I have to show up for them. And while I'm showing up for them, I have 13 other employees that I have to show up for. Then I have 140 other children that I have to show up for, right?
Yep.
So yeah, resilience. You have to want it.
But wouldn't it just be easier to watch a streaming service for 8 hours a day? Wouldn't that be easier?
Girl, my eyes be blurry going all kind of ways. I can't even watch my cell phone that often. I'm like, emails. I just need a break. Like, so if I feel that way, a child should feel that way.
Absolutely, but they come numb to it. I mean, think about it. I mean, even as adults, right? We use screen time as our own version of escape. And so we know that the
That's
kids
true.
are never coming down, right? Like they're up in their own
That's
little,
true.
they're in their own little world,
That's
right? And
where
so,
the ADHD
Yeah.
and the behavior issues and all of that stuff comes into place, and then the parents are looking like, well, you need to fix this. You say you're the professional, you need to fix it. How can I fix it?
but I mean, let's talk that through, right? Like the parents are part of a team. You know, we are a village, right? And
We
you
are
know,
a village. We
and-
are, and we can't do everything that we need to do if we do not have the parents' support or even have them on board. And sometimes we deal with parents that really don't understand,
Yeah.
right? So then it's my place to make sure that I hold your hand and come where you are so that I can bring you up so then you can understand what we're going through. We have the national day coming up, National Day of No Child Care. Parents are like, well, what am I supposed to do? Come with us so that your voice can be heard because I mean we can only do so much. And then we have some centers that are like, well, we're not closing because we're here for our parents. I understand. We all are here for our parents. But what happens when we don't have no money?
When the industry fails. And that has, we heard today somebody saying that they'd been told that childcare is a sunset industry. And everybody's response was, well, but without childcare, there is no other industry. So we can't be a sunset industry.
That's true. That is
But,
so true.
industries that have to exist have failed before. And what ends up happening is like you have to have massive community-wide input because, well, it just happened in England recently where they were going to close their last steel mill in the whole country. And the government was like, no, we can't not have a steel mill in the country.
Wow.
What do we do if there's a war? We have to have a steel mill.
Yeah.
What if we need to build more ships? Like, there's all these things that you need steel for. And so they had to have this huge intervention to rescue this one steel mill. That same thing could happen in childcare
Yeah.
if all of the surveys of people running childcare centers are like, if the childcare block grant fund goes away and CACFP goes away, the surveys are saying 40 to 60% of the childcare programs will have to close.
Listen, if the food program goes away, do you know how many hungry children we're going to have?
Yeah.
We have kids that come to the center and only eat at school. like they don't have meals at home.
Mhm.
We have some families that, when we have leftover food, we're packing it up and saying, hey, take this home with you.
Yep.
That is horrible.
And it's a hard thing to be on the other side of that and go, and feel like you have your hands tied, right? Because yeah, you could provide the food, but then you're operating on a 1% margin, right?
Yeah.
And you can't run a business on a 1% margin because last time I checked, an air conditioning system is not a 1% margin.
No.
And we've all got our situation, we've all got our scenario, but we got to remember that not only are we the workforce behind the workforce, we are a workforce that makes all the other workforces happen,
Everything
not
happens.
just essential workers,
No.
and
I mean, truthfully, even if we were just for essential workers, right? What's considered an essential worker?
absolutely.
Your doctors, your lawyers, your hospital workers, your hospital staff, right?
Computer engineers.
But they still have to eat.
Well, and so
So-
then you got your grocery store
Exactly.
employees, right? And then you've got,
Exactly.
I mean, okay, we could probably do okay with about, I don't know, 20% of the fast food restaurants. So if the other 80% managed to go away for a little while, that probably wouldn't be a bad thing. Because it would force people, I mean, if people are home, then they can start to learn to cook. We're gonna feed our children better,
Yeah,
there's a lot of things we
yeah.
could do. Doesn't mean that we will.
But I
Right.
mean,
Right.
that's one of the lessons of COVID was
Mhm.
that the states that were like, no, we're shutting everything down except for the essential workers, and childcare was part of that and everything.
Mhm.
And then the people were like, I'm sorry, I'm a paramedic, but I can't come to work
And then they
because
started-
I'm a single parent paramedic and I can't go to work if I don't have childcare because
Yeah.
I'm a single parent.
And then they started offering childcare owners incentives
Mhm.
to stay open for the essential workers.
Right. And then what the definition was got broader and broader and broader.
Exactly.
And I was like,
And then
my
there's no more
husband works with
no
ones and
more
zeros.
pandemic.
He's not an, I mean, like, I love him and he is essential to my life.
Mhm.
He is not an essential worker.
Except now he probably would be, because he now works ones and zeros for a hospital system.
Yeah, but he was considered essential back in COVID and he was doing ones and zeros for a retail company.
Oh, okay.
You know,
I mean, mine was considered essential, but as a result, he ended up doing Q-tips up people's noses. He's a physician's assistant, and so he was, activated National Guard. So I mean, it wasn't even like this was considered a statewide emergency,
Yeah.
and so he was activated to go test everybody who works in meat packing plants, and
To make
But-
sure that they didn't have COVID.
yeah, you 1,500 people, you want to make sure that they're
Wow.
but again, it's that whole, if the childcare system collapses, what happens to the rest
yeah,
of,
the what ifs.
and there's people who,
workforce development. There is
Yeah.
no workforce.
There is no nothing
Yeah.
without childcare.
oh, sure, we could go to a country that has no reproduction. Everybody could just stop having
And
kids.
what country is
'cause-
that?
I seem to recall there was a country that did that and they said you get one kid and it ground their economy
Maybe
to an
China?
almost halt.
Yeah.
And then
But then with that one kid, who watched that one kid? If we have a family of 10 and they have one child each,
Mhm.
who's watching that child when the adults are working?
Well, but there's a lot of argument for people who go, oh, if you've only got one or two kids, one adult staying home makes a lot more sense than the cost of, right?
Yeah.
But who determines who that person is and why is that determined the way it's
Okay,
determined,
so
right?
then we are not thinking about the children or the
No.
kid. We're thinking about self.
Yep,
Right, it's not what is in the best interest of children, because what is in the best interest of children is for them to be around other children. They do not have to be age mates within 3 months of each other,
No.
but children learn best through play.
Yes.
And there is an awful lot of play that you can only do with a partner. You have to have
You
partner
cannot
play.
play by yourself. It
I mean, you
becomes,
can, but
it
it's not-
becomes
you
very
only-
boring.
You only get independent play. You don't get parallel play. You
Mhm.
don't get cooperative play.
But how
You
much
don't do
independent
creative play.
Can I get at home?
You can get some, but it doesn't
okay,
get you
so
very far.
I don't have anything cognitive at home,
Mhm.
right? I have screen time, so I can't really play like that. And then I'm gonna get bored because then I have no one to play with.
Yep.
My 4-year-old tells me all the time, it's not fun here because I don't have anyone to play with. He has a 10-year-old sister.
Yeah.
You say, well, mommy, you don't play hide and seek with me. You know what? Mommy don't all the time, but I do play. So I don't want you to think that you have to play by yourself because you really don't. But he's 4. He's very smart. He's bored when he doesn't have anyone to play with. So when a child is home alone with the parent and the parent, okay, so let's just say the child is home with the parent and mom's working from home. How much work is mom getting done or dad? How much work?
And
Because
how
then
much
you have
play?
right, but then you have to stop working to go feed the child. You have to stop working to go bathe the child. You have, it's a lot of interrupting your day when you can just send your child to daycare, childcare, a learning academy, and you work for 8 hours.
Well, and then you have to come back and you actually have to give yourself back to your family. I mean, I think that's a big component that we were just talking about that we know is missing. We haven't actually said it out loud, but we know that those kids come home and, if parent picks them up at 6:30, they're feeding them, they're bathing them, they're putting them to bed. And there's probably a movie in there somewhere and mom and dad are probably also on their phone. So if you actually think about the number of quality hours that adults are spending with the children, it all comes back to those care workers because the early learning leaders, they're the ones spending the 60 hours a week with those kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, the kids might be home on the weekend. They might be home in the evening with their family. But realistically, those kids are not getting quality time because I don't know about you. I mean, you got a couple of kids, you had 2 kids, I had 4. My weekends with the 4 kids were like, I'm taking you to here and you to here and you to here and you to here. There was no
That's your
quality time.
weekend? Let's try doing the week.
Oh, but I mean, the weekend, then I've got to figure out, well, when am I gonna mow the lawn? And when am I gonna do the laundry? And when I'm gonna grocery shop? There was no quality time with my
No.
kiddos.
So when you're a single parent, you don't get quality time.
Mhm.
You don't get personal, you don't get nothing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason for a bathroom.
Oh, I mean, are you in there alone? Because I have 2 little people sitting at my door.
I'd have so I was a single mom for a while and I'd have a son and a cat. They'd both be at the door. I'm like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Y'all.
Are you taking a shower or a bath and they're sitting right there next to you talking about whatever it is that they
My
want to
cat
talk
still
about?
does. I still have cats that do that. I like jump up and going, well, hello, Cinder.
Yeah.
Are you afraid I'm gonna drown?
First time, I just need 20 minutes. 20 minutes. So my children have a bedtime.
Yeah.
8 o'clock, my kids are in the bed. Because by 8:45, I'm asleep. I need at least 20 minutes to have some downtime for myself.
Other than brushing your teeth and getting yourself ready for bed.
I can't even do that by myself because I'm brushing and the 4-year-old's brushing too. I just think that as a whole, as a nation, we all should just stand together for this at least one day, right? Because we have like an early ed day and then we have different days. I'm sure different states have their different days. But this National No Childcare Day, I think everyone should stand their ground.
Well, so I do want to mention, so this episode will probably air after that. So if you are hearing this, I do want you to go look to see what your community did. So if for some reason you're hearing this for the first time, go find, if you are not already part of the national associations, there are several national associations for early childcare. There are statewide associations for early childcare. Get to be part of them, be part of the change makers, know which groups are the ones that are advocating at your state level, because again, it's not the same at every state. There's a reason why we've got roughly 4 national associations in every state, probably have
and
3
a
to
lot
4.
of coalitions.
Yep.
And
yeah, the coalition.
we have listeners in other countries also.
Absolutely.
So if you're our listener in Seoul, thank you. We appreciate you listening every week. But we've got, listeners in Canada and we've got listeners in other places. Those are the places that pop into my head right now. But there are associations in your part of the world too that are advocating for early care and education.
Yes.
And go find one that resonates with you. You may have to go through 2 or 3 of them before you find one that you're like, yes, this mission and what they are doing matches the way I think.
These
and
are my
what
people.
Yeah.
So
What is your priority?
You have to find your people. You do. And I don't want anyone to think that, we're just pushing you to make a change or to do something. But you have to really look at your situation because everyone's situation is different and unique. But look at your situation and see what works best for you. But I honestly, wholeheartedly believe that every child deserves to be in some type of childcare setting or school setting. It's important for growth.
Yeah, and the times when we didn't have that is when you had large communities and you would have basically a central area of town, a park kind of area. And everybody just brought their kids there.
Yeah.
And the kids hung out.
Yeah.
And mom is, washing stuff, or auntie or whoever is in charge of that group of kids. And then somebody else brought their pot of kids. And, so you would have neighborhood gathering spaces. I lived in a part of the world that didn't have much childcare because they didn't need childcare because all the kids played right off of where the parents were cooking and doing laundry and stuff like that. And they all just kind of cooperatively kept everybody alive.
Well,
And the kids got to play with other kids while the parent who was doing the homemaking kinds of chores or
but they still
or
have
gardening
that
or whatever.
age interaction with
Yeah.
other, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the most important part.
Yeah.
Well,
And
and it
so
all comes back to the kids. I mean, I think everybody who's listening to this podcast absolutely has a heart for kids. And we know it's the administrative staff that listen to our podcast, and we're so glad that they're all here. And I think we could probably have another 3 or 4 hours worth of conversations with you.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely bring you back. But right now, what I want to do is I'm going to flip to Carrie to kind of close us out because like I said, I could sit here all day
All
and we could
day.
absolutely, right?
I mean,
And
especially when it's something that we're used to doing and it just comes natural.
you know, like having a conversation. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, conversation all day long. And this is a topic that I know. So we try.
well, it's a
really-
couple of topics. We've hit on several.
Yeah.
Yeah, but right now we're on one that I know we could take another 30 minutes on, and we try really hard to keep our episodes a little less.
Than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you so much for making the
you.
time and us figuring this out. It took us a couple of goes to try to make this conversation happen. And so thank you for your patience on this.
I
And
appreciate it. I really do.
I think it is great to see people taking the bull by the horns and developing new programs that are fitting the needs of their community. And I'm really glad you're doing that.
Thank you.
So for the listeners, if you learned something from this show,
Look up there.
share it with somebody else who needs to know. And we will talk to you next week. And don't forget to go in and write a review on your podcasting app of choice. Talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to Childcare Conversations with Kate and Carrie. Want to learn more? Check out our website at texasdirector.org. And if you've learned anything today, leave us a comment below and share the show.